Are you tired of your Windows computer constantly crashing on you or throwing up blue screens? Are you tired of Windows constantly updating and then restarting your computer right in the middle of something important? How about being forced to upgrade to a new operating system only to find out your computer won't support it? And then you end up having to buy a new computer just to be able to run a supported version of Windows. How about the constant telemetry and spying that Microsoft is doing on your PC every single day? Not to mention all the adware and bloatware that comes with every version of Windows. For too many years, people have absolutely gotten tired of all the crap that comes with Microsoft Windows. And yeah, I know that this is a Windows PC support channel because that's what I do for a living, but the reality is for a lot of you, especially for those of you who are novice users and maybe only do the same 5, 6, 7 things every day, basic stuff, there is an alternative, and it's called Linux. And for those of you who are not opposed to trying something different that's going to completely change the way that you use your computer, you might want to check it out. In today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to show you, start to finish, how to wipe your computer clean, get rid of Windows forever, install Linux, and never look back. Now, I will tell you, before you follow these steps, you should wait until the very end because there is a very important thing that you need to know before you actually begin this process, just in case you try Linux and you don't like it. Hey everyone, my name is Scott Merrill. I've been in IT for nearly 35 years. What I do on this channel is normally Windows tips, tricks, reviews, troubleshooting, and more. Today, we're going to talk about something different, Linux. One of the things that I also do for my viewers is if you're in the market for a new computer and you really don't know where to start, I can absolutely help you. There is a link in the video description. If you click that link, fill out a short form, I will laser focus and find you exactly the PC you need for your budget and something you could even run Linux on. It's 100% free. I'm happy to do it. Now, the content I make on this channel is for novice people who need to know the what and the why before the how. So if you'd like to make a comment, please feel free to do so. If your comment says video starts at, the comment's going to be deleted and you're going to be hidden from the channel. Now that we got that out of the way, let me explain to you a little bit about Linux so you understand what it is that we're doing. So first of all, I'm not a Linux expert, so understand that what I'm going to show you is the very basic stuff that even the most novice Windows user can figure out. There are a ton more things you can do in Linux, but this video specifically is targeted for those people who literally just do the same basic things every day. You know, you check your email online, or online banking, or open documents, or things like that. Nothing super fancy, which you can do a lot of that in Linux, but for the purpose of this video, I wanted to target just those people who are just tired of Windows breaking on them, and they're like, I just want to use my computer to do these same things every day. Linux may be a perfect solution for you. Some of the advantages of Linux are as follows. One, it's open source, which means that you don't ever have to pay for a license if you want to use Linux. Two, there are a bunch of different varieties of Linux, and those are called distros that appeal to different types of people, whether you're a creative or you're more geared towards productivity or things like that. There's a ton of different distros that you can check out to find out which one works the best for you. I actually did make a video on how to go check out distros and see which one might appeal to you. I'll put that link up in the corner for you. You can check that out. But for today's video, I'm going to use Linux Mint as our operating system of choice. The reason is because when I look at it, it seems the most familiar to a Windows user. In other words, things you're used to doing in Windows, it's pretty much the same places and the same general things. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to figure it out if you're brand new to Linux. Another advantage to Linux, even though it's not bulletproof, it is less susceptible to viruses and malware than Windows is, so you're automatically going to be a little bit safer using this operating system than you would using Windows. Another advantage is that you're not going to get constant updates. And again, restarting your computer in the middle of a term paper or something like that that could completely ruin your day. It just runs, and it's just really fantastic. It's great. I've got several Linux machines around the house doing various things that don't really require anything but just to sit there and stay running, and I love them. They're great. And there's probably a billion other reasons to use Linux aside from the, spying and telemetry and all that stuff that comes with Windows. You don't have that in Linux. So for a lot of people, especially those who are concerned about privacy, Linux is a better option. And if you're a little scared of transitioning from a Windows environment, which like me may be something that you're kind of only familiar with, you don't know anything different, this is an opportunity to kind of take the reins back from Big Brother. Now, I've made another video about how to run Linux side by side with Windows. I'll put a link up here if you want to check that out. But in this video, I'm specifically targeting people who are done with Microsoft, done with Windows. They don't care about their Microsoft Windows that's on their machine. They're ready to wipe it clean and start over. And again, you need to pay attention because at the end of this video, there is one thing that you should do before you start this process, just in case you change your mind. So with that being said, let me show you how to go download Linux, create an installer disk, and you will need a flash drive, either an 8 GB minimum or preferably a 16 GB drive. And with that, you're going to have everything you need to start over fresh, clean with Linux and tell Windows goodbye forever. Now I know during this process you guys are going to have a ton of questions. If you will hold your comments until the end of the video, and I will probably answer them for you at that time. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go to Google, and in the Google search box, you're going to type download space Linux space Mint and go ahead and search. That first link that comes up where it says linuxmint.com download, go ahead and click on that. Now the next page comes up to a download page, and there's different versions of Linux Mint you can choose. Most people who are beginners are going to want the Linux Mint Cinnamon version. It is arguably the most popular one. So if you scroll down just a little bit and click download next to the Cinnamon edition, it will take you to the download page, at which point you can scroll down the page. Just choose a mirror that's close to you. It doesn't matter which one, they're all the same file. And then that will begin the download process of the Linux Mint ISO file, which is what we need to create the installer to get this whole process started. And you can look here in the downloads and see that it has started. Now the Linux Mint installation guide is going to want you to install this program called Balena Etcher. Now I have had issues with Balena Etcher. Ironically, I had an issue running it, creating this video. So I'm going to show you a different program that I recommend. Now the program I recommend is called Rufus, and you can get to it by going to rufus.ie in your search bar. Once you've entered that, you're going to get to this page right here, and you'll see the flash drive and the word Rufus. Just scroll down the page to the download section, and I always just choose this first option here, which is the Rufus.4.13. The version may be newer when you watch this video, but that's the standard installation. Just click on that and start the download. And if you look at your downloads, you'll see it's downloading as well. It's a pretty small file, so don't worry about doing anything with that right now. At this point, we just have to wait until the download of the ISO file is done, and then we can go ahead and run Rufus. So at this point, just sit back and wait. The ISO is a pretty large file. Once the ISO file is done, then go ahead definitely and run Rufus. Now you're going to get this window pops up here. So go ahead and verify your flash drive letter. In this case, mine is drive D. And once I've verified that flash drive, go ahead and click select under boot selection, and your download is right there in your downloads file. Just click on it and open, and it's going to load it into the Rufus window. It's going to populate the volume label, which you can change if you like. You don't have to change anything else at this point. All you really have to do is just click start and make sure that flash drive is completely empty, or you don't care what's on it, because it will be completely wiped and everything will be gone. The next window pops up. Just select write in ISO image mode. Unless there's a problem, you don't need to change that. The next screen that comes up, just go ahead and click yes, and then click yes again. It's just going to download some necessary files to complete the process. No big deal. Next up comes up, says all data on the device will be destroyed. Are you sure? Again, if it's empty and you're fine with that, go ahead and click OK. And then you'll see that green status bar displaying what is going on during this process. And at this point, you just basically sit back and wait. So right now it's going to format that disk, and then when it's done, you should see this pop up right here. And that's just Windows telling you that, hey, I formatted the drive, I gave it a drive letter, and just like when you plug a flash drive in and it pops up on your screen, that's all that is. Nothing to worry about. You're going to see files being written to this D drive or whatever drive letter you chose. You can sit and watch it, or you can close it and just let Rufus run in the background. Either way is fine. As you can see in the Rufus window behind this window, there's stuff still being copied over. So it's going to take a while, but just be patient and let it run. Okay, so it's 100% done. It's finalized. And once it says ready under status in that green bar there, you can go ahead and click close. Your flash drive is ready to go. And if you want to go check on your computer and look at the D drive, you'll see there's a lot more files written to it. At this point, everything is exactly as needed, and all we have to do now is restart the computer and boot to this flash drive. Now, there are several ways to boot to a flash drive. In Windows, you can go to your power button, hold down the Shift key, and then when you select Restart, it will bring up a menu where you can then say boot to a flash drive. Menu is going to look like this, and just click on Use a Device, and then the next screen that comes up is going to say, okay, what device do you want to use? In this case, we're going to say EFI USB device. That is the flash drive you just created, and Windows will restart and boot to that drive. Now, another common method of choosing a boot device is to hit Escape or F1 or whatever on your computer when it boots up, and then you will generally have the option for a boot menu. In this case, it's F9, and if I hit F9, then it would say, okay, what device you want to boot to. Both of these methods work. Doesn't matter which one, they both do the same thing. So when you boot to the installer disk, this is the menu that you'll get. The very first option is Start Linux Mint Cinnamon 64-bit, the one on the top. Just select that and hit enter. So this is what you're going to see when you boot to that installer disk. You're just going to have one icon on the desktop, but this is basically a live version of Linux. You can go in and connect to the internet, surf the web, and do whatever you want. It's fully functional. The only thing is that it's a little slow because it's running off of a flash drive. You will see that when you get in here, it doesn't look too unlike Windows. You've got documents, downloads, music, pictures, videos, things that you're already familiar with. So it's just a different file system because it's a different operating system. But I certainly recommend poking around for sure. And if you decide after this, you're like, I really like this, it's way better than Windows, and it seems to work exactly for what I need. You haven't done anything to your Windows installation. You haven't hurt it in any way. This is fully running off of a flash drive, and it basically is, think of it as a test drive. You can go and poke around and do whatever you want and say, hey, this is actually kind of cool. I don't mind this so much. In which case, if you decide you want to go ahead and wipe Windows forever, you can absolutely do that. And let me show you how to do that. All you have to do is click this button, this icon up here, Install Linux Mint. And it's going to start the installation of the Linux software on your hard drive. Okay, so once you click that Install Linux Mint CD icon up there, this is the menu you're going to get. Go ahead and select your language and click Continue, and then your keyboard layout and Continue. And then if you haven't already connected to a wireless network, this will give you the option to do that. I already have, so I can just select the one I've already connected to and click Continue. Now in this option here, I always go ahead and install all the multimedia codecs. Codec is just, it stands for compressor, decompressor. It's just what allows your audio and video files to play without any issues. So I always check that, go ahead and let it download those. The configure secure boot, this is one of those things where I'm not 100% sure whether you're supposed to do it or not. So because I don't know, I'm going to leave that option off, but I'm sure you can configure that later if you want. If you guys, if you Linux fans in the audience know, let me know down in the comments, because that would be helpful information. And also how to reconfigure it later if one desires to do that. All right, so the next step up here, and this is important, and I'm going to pause right here because this is where everything kind of becomes a big deal. This is where the rubber meets the road. Now, I did make a video earlier about how to run Linux Mint alongside Windows on the same drive, and I heard from a lot of people, Linux fans, that that's not a good idea because a Windows update can cause an issue with the bootloader that says, okay, do you want to, when you turn on the computer, does it want to load Linux or does it want to load Windows? And if that gets corrupted, you might not be able to load either. Now, since the purpose of this video is for those people who are done with Windows, they don't want to run Windows and Linux together, we are not even going to touch that option. The option we want is this next option here, which is to erase the disk and install Linux Mint. So I'm going to select that, and if I click Advanced Features, I have this Use LVM with the new Linux Mint installation. Again, I don't know what that is because there's no information that tells me what it is, so I'm probably going to just cancel that and not even choose that. Again, Linux guys, let me know down in the comments what that is and whether that's important for a Linux user to know. At this point, I'm 100% sure that I'm ready to wipe my computer and install Linux and get rid of Windows forever. So once I select this and click install now, that's it. There's no going back. If you're 100% sure that you're ready to wipe your computer and no more Windows, just Linux, check that option and then click install now. Once you've done that, you're going to get this window comes up and says, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to wipe the drive? Are you sure you want to recreate partitions for Linux and all that? Again, if you don't want Windows ever again, you're fine. Go ahead and click continue, but this will destroy all data on that hard drive, and then you will not have Windows. You will only have Linux. So once you're ready, go ahead and click continue. If you're not sure, click go back. At that point, you haven't made any changes. Once you click continue, now go to the next screen, which is select your time zone, click continue. Now, this is where you need to create a username, and I'll pause right here for a second. Apparently, in Linux, you cannot have capitals in your username, so it has to be lowercase. Not a big deal, but just be aware that if you keep trying to type a username with a, if your name is Susan and you type capital S-U-S-A-N, it's not going to work. It's going to say it must be lowercase. So pick a lowercase username, and then you can continue and create a password to go with that. And make sure you remember your password because you're probably going to need it. And then you can have the option below that to log in automatically, which means your computer's just going to boot straight to the Linux desktop, but it will still require that password for certain software installations or driver updates and things like that. But if you want to be forced to type a password, then check require my password to log in. I'm going to leave it log in automatically and continue. And at this point, it's going to just go through the process of installing Linux. Now, it is going to give you a little slideshow here to distract you during the installation process. And I'm just going to kind of cover some of these things and skip forward for you. So the first one that comes up is basically about surfing the web, whether it's Firefox or YouTube. There's a Chromium browser available if you're used to Google Chrome. There are ways to get online with Linux. So this is just letting you know here are some of the more popular ones. The next one comes up and is specifically for you audiophiles out there. If you like Spotify or any of those streaming music services, those are also available in Linux. And if you're like me and you like to watch movies and videos, there are programs, specifically VLC is one that is very popular with Windows users. That is absolutely available in Linux. There's several other programs. I don't know those programs, but I'm sure I will experiment with those and may like those better than VLC. But it's nice to know that something I know and trust in Windows, like VLC, is available in Linux. And you'll find that there's a lot of programs that you use every day that are available in Linux. So you're not losing anything necessarily by switching to Linux. You may just have to find a different program that basically does what you want to do. So if you're into, if you have a lot of photos and you want to edit them and things like that, there are programs that are included here that are built in that you can use. And also for social media, there's a bunch of different social media apps that are built into Linux that you can use, WhatsApp and Discord and things like that. And the most important thing, there are 30,000 free programs that you can download and install on Linux. Everything from, as you see, Steam, Google Earth, Dropbox, Blender, Discord, VirtualBox, which you can use to run Windows inside of Linux. That's pretty crazy. But there are a ton of free programs out there that you can download and install using the software manager. And you may find some programs that you didn't even know about that are only available in Linux. So you might enjoy that. And as I said before, you can run Windows software through this great program called Wine. Wine is basically just an emulator. It lets you run certain Windows programs inside of Linux, which is really fantastic for some people like me who have Windows programs that would normally prevent me from using a different operating system, but now I can actually run those inside of Wine, which is really cool. Not every program runs, but they're adding more and more every single day. And also VirtualBox, which actually lets you run Windows inside of Linux. You can actually run an entire Windows operating system inside of VirtualBox. Now, as I mentioned before in the open, you can customize so many things with Linux. Your desktop, backgrounds, effects, fonts, everything. It gives you a ton of options, including different themes and all things like that. It's going to really give you flexibility on making your computer your own. And again, that's all built into Linux. This is one thing I do like here is the the update manager here. It's like your apps in Windows, except when you go here, it tells you of all the installed programs if there are updates available, and you can select the one that you want, or you can select them all and just install updates, and it will update all the programs that need to be updated, instead of opening one program and then finding out you need to update that one and you don't know what needs to be updated, whatever. It's all in one place here, which I think is actually kind of cool. Now, I think this one is probably the most important, because if you're new to Linux, you don't know what you don't know. But you can go to the Linux Mint website, and there is a complete user community there where people can ask newbie questions. And there's other places on the web, of course, where you can get help. YouTube and Reddit, which you know how I feel about Reddit, but there are some helpful people out there. But the most important thing is that Linux Mint, specifically this Linux Mint installation, has a place where people who don't know things can go and feel safe asking questions. How do I do this, or how do I do that? So you're not installing this operating system and then left to figure it out on your own. There is a good place to start learning some of the fundamentals. Now at this point, the installation is done. You can continue testing if you like, but until you restart the computer, any changes you make or documents you save will not be preserved. So if you just want to poke around a little bit, you can go ahead and click continue testing. But remember, we wiped the hard drive, so there's nothing else to boot to except Linux. So I would go ahead and click restart now and get started. You'll get a message saying it's going to restart, and off you go. Okay, so when the desktop loads up, you're going to get this welcome screen, and it gives you some things to start with. First of all, you have option to change your desktop. Colors, themes, light, dark, all built in. You can click launch, and it will bring up this theme window here where you can select different colors, different darkness or light, depending on what you like. Once you find something that you like, go ahead and just select it and then click the X. Next one I'd recommend is the driver manager here, and this is going to go and look and see if there are new software drivers available for your hardware that's inside your computer. Every piece of hardware has a software component that tells the hardware how to work, and those are called drivers. And so you want to make sure you keep your drivers current. The driver manager is going to go out there and it's going to look and see if there's anything available for you. In this case, I'm going to skip that. As I talked about before, the update manager, when you click launch and click OK, it's going to go looking through all the software you have installed to tell you if there's any updates. In this case, there's an update to the update manager, so I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Got to put in a password, and then it's going to go do all that. And now the update manager will run, and it'll show you all the things that are installed. You can select all these or just ignore them, but that is neat that they're all in one place. At this point, you can uncheck the show this dialog at startup unless you want it to come up every time, and just click X to close it. So just starting off, I wanted to check out the software manager from my start menu, just to kind of get an idea of what's available and see if there's any programs I recognize. And there's a ton. You can see here it's sorted by featured, or you can select a particular category, like if you're looking for productivity tools or anything like that. Now, of course, it wouldn't be my machine without me customizing my background wallpaper. So I'm going to right click and go to my backgrounds, select my favorite photo, and boom. Now I have a PC that is already feeling like it's mine. I can go through the start menu and go through all the different categories like we talked about before, and just poke around and experiment. Open the internet, go through your different folders and kind of see how everything's laid out and all that. But basically that's it. It's not too different from Windows, except you have full control and you own this PC again. So I hope you enjoyed that little introduction to how to set up Linux for the first time. Now I'm going to try to answer some of these questions for you, but understand I'm learning just like you. Now, first question is this really free? Yes, 100% free. It is actually what's called open source, and that means that it is free to use for any particular machine you want at any time. You're never going to have to pay for a license. You're never going to have to deal with Microsoft again. It's just free, and people around the world absolutely love Linux, and honestly I can kind of see why after playing with it for a little bit. Another question, and this is probably one of the most common questions, is I have an old laptop or an old desktop and I can't upgrade to Windows because Microsoft says the hardware is out of date. Can I run Linux on it? Yeah, 100% absolutely. Matter of fact, that's one of the benefits of Linux is that you can basically run it on anything. There's an old expression that said you could run Linux on a potato, and that's really kind of true. I've taken some machines that are 10, 12, 14 years old and put Linux on them, and they run great. So yes, if you have an old computer, instead of chucking it out the window, take that computer and throw Linux on it and let it surprise you as to how fast that operating system can actually be. Another question you might have is, what if I have Windows software that I absolutely have to have and I don't want to wipe my computer and then lose that Windows software? Well, first, if you have the Windows software backed up as far as the installation files, then it's not going to hurt you to give this a try. That Windows software may work in a Wine application inside of Linux, but again, there's no guarantee. Usually the more common the software is, in other words, the more popular the software is, the more likely it's going to work in Wine. If it's a proprietary program, it's probably not going to work, but it's certainly worth to try. Do not do this if you do not have that software backed up, because then you're going to have Linux, and even if you go back to Windows, you don't have the ability to reinstall that Windows software. If you have another machine to try it on, I would give that a try and maybe see if you can get that software to work on that machine, and then you know it will work, and then you can safely install Linux over your Windows and run your software with no problem. Another question is how much safer is Linux than Windows? Well, it's a common misconception that people think, well, I have Linux or Mac and I can't get viruses or malware, and that's absolutely not true. A Linux machine can get malware, can get a virus, but it's less likely. Part of the reason for that is because the consumer market share for Linux is much smaller than it is for Windows, and so the bad actors out there write the software that's going to affect the majority of users. Now, as Linux gains in popularity, you have started to see more malware infections or more malware outbreaks that can affect Linux users. But overall, I would say that you are probably reducing your risk from 100% with Windows down to probably about 10% with Linux. It's just a safer operating system. The way it's designed at its core doesn't make you as vulnerable as the Windows core operating system. So even if nothing else, even if you only did this just for security, maybe you didn't want to pay $50, $60, $70 a year for an antivirus program, just switching to Linux might keep you from having to do that just because it is safer. Now, I don't know anything about Linux antivirus software. Honestly, I haven't heard anything about Linux antivirus software because you really don't hear about Linux infections, but they do exist. Will my Linux run faster if I upgrade my hard drive, say from a spindle drive to an SSD? Oh, absolutely. It's still an operating system. It's still software. And the way the software is read off a physical drive is going to determine how fast it is. So if you are running Linux on a spindle drive, an old spindle hard drive, and you upgrade to an SSD drive, Linux is going to run even faster for you. Another question that you might be asking, and hopefully you watch this entire video before doing this process, is because once you wipe this computer and you decide you maybe don't like Linux, maybe you just don't want to try it, maybe you're just too comfortable with Windows and you want to go back to it. Well, the only way to do that is if you have a Windows installer disk. So if you've made it this far and you want to try Linux, I would 100,000% recommend that you get a Windows installer. And if you decide you don't want Linux anymore and you want to put Windows right back on your computer, you can absolutely do that. I did make a video showing you exactly how to do that for both Windows 10 and Windows 11. I'll put that video right here, and hopefully once you do that, then you can experiment with Linux and see if it works for you. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.